The weight of the past slipped from Elena's shoulders as she stepped into the airport terminal. At 34, she felt both older than her years and reborn at once. 6 months ago, she would have never imagined herself here. Passport clutched. In trembling fingers, a single suitcase containing what remained of her life. The rest had been left behind in the elegant suburban home that had doubled as her prison for nearly a decade. Walking through the gleaming terminal, Elena tucked a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear, a habit her husband Marcus had repeatedly criticized. The memory of his voice, "Don't fidget, Elena, it makes you look nervous," still echoed in her mind. But today, she deliberately ran her fingers through her hair, relishing the small rebellion. Her flight to Barcelona departed in just under an hour. A new start in a new country, the culmination of months of careful planning and secret savings accounts. Marcus would be at his conference in Chicago for 3 more days, giving her the head start she needed. By the time he realized she was gone, she would be establishing herself in Spain, protected by an ocean and the legal paperwork her lawyer had meticulously prepared. Elena glanced at her boarding pass and followed the signs to Gate 37. The terminal was unusually crowded for a Tuesday, packed with travelers dragging luggage and checking phones. She maneuvered through the masses, keeping her head down out of habit. Even now, thousands of miles from Marcus, she reflexively avoided drawing attention. At the gate, she sank into an empty seat and checked her watch. Boarding would begin soon. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to envision the Mediterranean apartment she'd rented online, simple but sun-drenched, with a small balcony overlooking a local market. For the first time in years, something like hope flooded in her chest. Now boarding flight 426 to Madrid. All zones, all passengers, Elena's eyes snapped open. Madrid. She fumbled for her boarding pass. Barcelona, Gate 37. She glanced up at the gate display. Flight 426 to Madrid, Gate 37. A chill ran through her. Had she misread her ticket? Had there been a gate change? She hurried to the counter where a harried gate agent was collecting boardings. Passes. "Excuse me, isn't this the Barcelona flight?" The woman barely looked up. "Barcelona is Gate 57, ma'am. This is Madrid. But my pass says..." Elena glanced down and froze. Gate 57, not 37. How had she made such a careless mistake? Final boarding call for Flight 426 to Madrid. Elena backed away from the counter, heart hammering in her chest. She had to get to Gate 57 immediately. Turning too quickly, she collided with a tall figure, her boarding pass fluttering from her hand. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, dropping to her knees to retrieve it. "No harm done," came a deep voice, with the faintest trace of an accent she couldn't place. A tanned hand reached the boarding pass before she could, and Elena found herself looking up into the most striking pair of eyes she'd ever seen, an unusual grey-green that reminded her of the ocean during a storm. They belonged to a man approximately her age, with dark hair peppered with distinguished silver at the temples, and features that spoke of outdoor adventures and distant horizons. "Barcelona?" he asked, handing back her pass. "You're at the wrong gate." "I know," she said, embarrassment heating her cheeks. "I just realized." The man glanced at his watch. "Gate 57 is on the other side of the terminal. You'd better hurry if you want to make it." Elena nodded, clutching her pass. "Thank you." She turned and hurried away, weaving through the crowded terminal with growing panic. This wasn't like her. Such a careless mistake could jeopardize everything. Marcus had always criticized her attention to detail. "You'd lose your head if it wasn't attached, Elena." The memory stung, but she pushed it aside. She was different now, stronger. Gate 57 came into view, but to her dismay, the doors were already closed, the gate agents gone. Through the window, she could see her Barcelona-bound plane already being pushed back from the gate. No, 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 Elena whispered, pressing a hand to the glass. The crushing weight of failure settled over her. Everything had been so carefully planned. The apartment was paid for, a job interview lined up. She had exactly enough money to establish herself. If everything went according to plan, this deviation could ruin everything. Missed your flight. Elena turned to find the grey-eyed stranger from earlier, standing behind her, his own carry-on bag slung over one shoulder. Yes, she admitted, blinking back tears of frustration. The Barcelona flight. Bad luck, he said, his expression sympathetic, but not pitying. I missed mine too. Madrid. Something about his calm demeanour steadied her. What happened? Last-minute call from my publisher. By the time I finished, boarding had closed. He shrugged as if missing international flights was a minor inconvenience. There's another Barcelona flight in 3 hours. I just checked. 3 hours? Elena's mind raced. That would still get her to Barcelona tonight. Her rental agreement gave her a 24-hour window to pick up the keys. I'm Gabriel, by the way, he said, extending his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Elena shook it. Elena. Well, Elena, I'm about to drown my sorrows in airport coffee. Care to join me? Misery loves company after all. His smile was disarming, genuine, in a way that made the fine lines around his eyes crinkle. Elena almost declined automatically. Years with Marcus had trained her to avoid casual interactions. But then she remembered. She was free now. She could have coffee with a stranger if she wanted. Coffee sounds perfect, actually. The airport cafe was predictably overpriced. But Gabriel insisted on paying. Consider it an apology for distracting you earlier, he said, placing a steaming latte in front of her. It wasn't your fault, Elena replied. I misread the gate number. Gabriel settled into the chair across from her. So, Barcelona, vacation. Elena hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Something like that. A fresh start, something in her tone, must have given her away because Gabriel nodded knowingly, but didn't press further. Instead, he said, Barcelona's good for that. Beautiful city. I lived there for a year in my 20s. Really, I've never been. You'll love it. The architecture alone is worth the trip. Gaudy's buildings look like something from a dream. For the next hour, Gabriel told her about Barcelona. Hidden restaurants tourists never found. Quiet corners in busy parks. The best time to visit the beach. His enthusiasm was infectious. His stories painting pictures so vivid, she could almost see the narrow streets and sunny plazas. What about you? Elena finally asked. Why Madrid? Book research, he explained. I'm a writer. Historical fiction, mostly. Anything I might have read, depends. Do you enjoy stories about obscure medieval conflicts and star-crossed lovers? Elena laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised her with its ease. That actually sounds right up my alley. Gabriel's eyes lit up. A fellow history buff? I was an art history major before. As she trailed off, the familiar shadow crossing her face, Gabriel noticed but gracefully changed the subject. What's your favorite artistic period? The conversation flowed effortlessly after that. Elena found herself discussing Renaissance paintings and Gothic architecture with a passion she'd buried years ago. Marcus had dismissed her art history degree as impractical sentimentality, encouraging her to focus on maintaining their home and social calendar instead. Gradually, she'd stopped talking about her interests altogether. But Gabriel listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and offering insights of his own. when he disagreed with her assessment of Caravaggio's later works. It wasn't dismissive, but engaging, a true exchange of ideas, rather than a veiled criticism. "You know," he said as they finished their second coffee, "I could use someone with your expertise for my current project. It's set in 16th century Spain." "I'm hardly an expert," Elena demurred. "You know more than most, and you clearly have passion for the subject." He hesitated, then pulled out a business card. "If you're interested, once you're settled, send me an email. I could use a historical consultant, even part-time." Elena accepted the card, tracing her finger over the embossed lettering. Gabriel Vega, author. Below was an email address and a small publisher's logo. "I'll think about it," she said, tucking the card into her purse. A comfortable silence settled between them, broken only when Gabriel glanced at his watch. "We should check on those rebookings. The customer service counter will get busy soon." The airline agent confirmed available seats on both the next Barcelona and Madrid flights. As they walked away with their new boarding passes, Elena felt a strange reluctance to part ways with this man she'd just met. "My new gate is this way," Gabriel said, pointing left. "Mine's the opposite direction," Elena replied. They stood awkwardly for a moment before Gabriel spoke. "Listen, I know this might sound strange, but would you consider coming to Madrid instead, just for a few days?" Elena stared at him, speechless. "I'm not usually this forward," he added quickly, "but I can show you the Prado Museum. Their Velázquez collection would blow your mind. And you mentioned wanting to see his Las Meninas in person. I did say that, didn't I?" Elena murmured, a battle raging inside her. The sensible part of her mind screamed that this was madness. Changing plans for a stranger. Risking her carefully, orchestrated escape. Yet another part of her, one long suppressed, whispered that perhaps this was exactly what freedom meant. The ability to change course. To follow inspiration rather than fear. "I have separate guest quarters at my rental," Gabriel continued, "completely private, and I know some people at the university who work in art restoration. Could be good contacts if you're looking to get back into the field." Elena looked down at her Barcelona boarding pass, then back at Gabriel's earnest face. There was something about him, a transparency, an absence of agenda, that she found herself trusting, despite years of hard-learned caution. "I'd need to cancel my Barcelona arrangements," she said slowly. Gabriel's face lit up. "So that's a yes?" "It's a maybe," Elena replied, but she was already reaching for her phone. 3 days later, Elena stood in the center of the Prado Museum's Grand Gallery, Gabriel at her side, both of them gazing up at Velázquez's masterpiece, Las Meninas. The painting was even more magnificent than she'd imagined during her university studies. The interplay of light and shadow, the enigmatic reflections, the artist himself looking out from the canvas, as if engaged in silent conversation with the viewers. "What do you see when you look at it?" Gabriel asked softly. Elena considered the question, not as the art history student she once was, but as the woman she was becoming. "I see someone creating their own reality," she answered. Velázquez painted himself into a world of his choosing, surrounded by the people and details that mattered to him. He made himself both observer and participant. Gabriel nodded thoughtfully. "I've never heard it described quite that way before." The past 3 days had been a revelation. Madrid, under Gabriel's guidance, was a city of hidden wonders. Small museums housed in former palaces, cafes tucked away in centuries-old courtyards, sunset views from rooftops tourists never discovered. His knowledge of the city was intimate and genuine, and he shared it with an enthusiasm that was contagious. More surprising was how comfortable Elena felt in his presence. She had expected to be on edge, constantly second-guessing her impulsive decision. Instead, she found herself relaxing into a friendship that felt both new and somehow familiar, as if they'd known each other in some previous life. They had separate rooms in the spacious apartment Gabriel had rented in a pre-war building near Retiro Park. Each evening, they would cook dinner together in the kitchen, with tall windows overlooking the tree-lined street below. Gabriel was a surprisingly good cook, creating simple Spanish dishes that they ate on the balcony with local wine, talking until the stars appeared above the Madrid skyline. Elena had told him about her marriage during one of those evenings, not all at once, but in fragments that spilled out between discussions of books and art and travel. How Marcus had swept her off her feet during her final year of university. How the charm had gradually given way to control, criticism, replacing compliments, isolation, disguised as protection. How her world had narrowed until escape seemed impossible. Gabriel had listened without judgment, asking questions that showed he understood the insidious nature of emotional abuse. When she finally explained that she was not just visiting Spain, but fleeing to it, he'd reached across the table and squeezed her hand briefly. A gesture of solidarity rather than pity. "You're the bravest person I've met in a long time," he'd said simply. Now standing before Las Meninas, Elena felt something shift inside her. The painting that had once represented academic interest now seemed to speak directly to her situation, about choosing which reality to inhabit, about being both the subject of one's life and the artist creating it. "I called the apartment manager in Barcelona this morning," she said, still gazing at the painting. "I cancelled the rental." Gabriel turned to her, surprise evident on his face. "What about your fresh start?" "I'm still having one," Elena replied. "Just not in Barcelona. Madrid instead, for now. I spoke with your friend at the university yesterday. She thinks there might be a position opening in the restoration department next month. They need someone with my background in Italian Renaissance techniques." Gabriel's expression softened. "That's wonderful news, but..." He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I don't want you to feel that you have to stay because of me. What we've had these past few days has been unexpected," Elena finished for him, "but good. At least for me. For me too." Gabriel admitted, "Better than good." They stood in silence, both aware of the delicate nature of what was developing between them. Elena had left one relationship only days ago, albeit one that had been emotionally over for years. And Gabriel, she had learned, carried his own past. A marriage that had ended when his wife decided she couldn't handle his writer's lifestyle, the travel and irregular hours. "I'm not rushing into anything," Elena said finally. "I need time to find myself again, to remember who I am, outside of Marcus's shadow." Gabriel nodded. "I understand, and I respect that. But," she continued, gathering her courage, "I'd like us to keep knowing each other while I do that. If that's something you want to." The smile that spread across Gabriel's face was answer enough, but he spoke anyway. "I was hoping you'd say that. I've got another month in Madrid before I need to return to my publisher in New York. That's plenty of time to show you every hidden corner of this city. And maybe by then, we'll have a better idea of whatever this is becoming." Elena felt a flutter of anticipation, mixed with healthy caution. "One day at a time? One masterpiece at a time," Gabriel agreed, gesturing to the painting's surroundings, them. "Speaking of which, there's a small collection of Botticelli sketches in the next gallery that I think you'll love." As they moved through the museum, Elena felt lighter than she had in years. The future remained uncertain. Her savings wouldn't last forever. The university position wasn't guaranteed. and her feelings for Gabriel were still taking shape, but for perhaps the first time in her adult life, uncertainty didn't terrify her. Instead, it felt like possibility. That evening, they walked along the Manzanares River as the setting sun painted the water in shades of gold and crimson. Families strolled by, children laughed, street musicians played haunting melodies that echoed under the bridges. Elena breathed deeply, filling her lungs with the warm Spanish air. "Thank you," she said suddenly. Gabriel looked at her questioningly. "For what?" "For being at the wrong gate at the right time. For coffee with a stranger. For showing me Madrid." He smiled, the fading sunlight catching the silver in his hair. "Thank you for missing your flight," Elena laughed. "That wasn't exactly intentional. Some of the best things in life aren't," Gabriel replied. After a moment's hesitation, he reached for her hand. His touch was gentle, offering connection without demand. Elena interlaced her fingers with his, surprising herself with how natural it felt. They continued walking in comfortable silence as twilight descended over Madrid. Two people who had found each other by chance, or perhaps by some design. Neither of them fully understood. Later, sitting at a small table outside a neighborhood tapas bar, Gabriel raised his glass. "To wrong turns that lead to right places." Elena clinked her glass against his, feeling the promise of tomorrow unfurling before her like a map, to territories unknown, yet somehow already beloved. "To beginning again," she added, as night embraced the ancient city. Elena realized that for the first time in her adult life, she wasn't running from something, but moving towards something instead. Whatever happened with Gabriel, whether it blossomed into lasting love or remained a beautiful chapter in her story of rediscovery, she had already found what she'd truly been seeking when she boarded that plane. Not just escape, but the courage to choose her own path forward. In the warm Spanish night, surrounded by the melodic flow of a language she was just beginning to learn, and the presence of a man she was just beginning to know, Elena finally felt the truth that had eluded her. For so long, freedom wasn't about the destination, but about having the courage to change course along the way.